before he became the eldest son of Angelina Jolie. Before Hollywood, before the private jets, before the cameras followed his every move. He was simply a baby, living in Cambodia. No one outside a small children's care center knew his name. No one imagined that one day he would become part of one of the most famous families in the world. Today, the world knows him as Maddox Jolie Pitt. But before that, he had another name, Rath Vibol, a name almost forgot by history. And perhaps the most extraordinary part of his story is not what happened after he became famous. It's what happened before anyone was watching. Because Maddox's journey did not begin in Hollywood. It began in Cambodia, a country still recovering from one of the darkest chapters of the 20th century. In 2001, Cambodia looked peaceful to visitors. Ancient temples attracted tourists from around the world. Rice fields stretched across the countryside. Children played in village streets. But beneath that beauty, the country was still healing from decades of conflict. The scars of the Khmer Rouge era remained visible everywhere. Communities struggled with poverty. Schools lacked resources. Hospitals were overwhelmed. Many families fought every day simply to survive. For some parents, the hardest decision imaginable became reality. Unable to provide enough food, education, or medical care, they placed their children into residential care, hoping they would have a better chance at life. Among those children was a baby born on August 5, 2001. According to official adoption records, his name was Rath Vibol. Very little verified information has ever been released about his biological family. Over the years, many rumors have appeared online, but none have been reliably confirmed. The truth is simple. Some parts of Maddox's earliest life remain unknown, and they may always remain that way. What we do know is that he spent part of his infancy in institutional care in Battambang province. The children's home was modest. There were no luxurious rooms, no expensive toys, only dedicated caregivers doing their best with limited resources. To everyone there, Rath Vibol was simply another little boy, one among many children waiting for an uncertain future. No one could have imagined that newspapers around the world would one day tell his story, or that he would become the son of one of Hollywood's biggest stars. History often changes in unexpected ways, sometimes because of wars, sometimes because of world leaders, and sometimes because two lives, separated by thousands of miles, are slowly moving toward each other without even knowing it. While a baby named Rath Vibol slept peacefully inside a children's care center in Cambodia, an Academy Award-winning actress was preparing to board a flight. She believed she was traveling to Southeast Asia to film another movie. She had no idea that this journey would change her life forever, or that somewhere in Cambodia, a little boy, who had never heard her name, was about to become her son. For most people, the first years of life are filled with family, a familiar voice, a loving home, memories that last forever. But for some children, life begins differently. Their earliest days are shaped by uncertainty, by waiting, by hoping that someone will come. That was the world of a little boy named Rath Vibol. No cameras documented his childhood. No newspapers mentioned his name. He was simply one child, among many others, living quietly inside a children's care center in Battambang. Official records reveal very little about those first months. And that matters, because over the years, many stories have been invented about Maddox's past. Some claimed to know who his biological parents were. Others claimed to know why he entered care. But the reality is, those claims have never been reliably confirmed. The truth is far simpler. Many parts of his earliest life remain unknown. And respecting those unknowns is part of telling his story honestly. What we do know is that Rath Vibol spent part of his infancy in residential care. To understand his story, we also need to understand Cambodia at that time. Many people assume every child in institutional care was an orphan. But that wasn't always the case. In the early 2000s, extreme poverty forced many families into heartbreaking decisions. Some children had lost their parents. Others had relatives who simply couldn't provide enough food, healthcare, or education. Every family's story was different. Inside the children's home, life followed a simple routine. Caregivers prepared bottles. Children shared meals. Older kids played together while the youngest were cared for. Resources were limited, but the staff worked hard to provide stability and comfort. Among those children was Rath Vibol. He wasn't famous. He was treated differently. He was simply another little boy with an uncertain future. Like every child, he laughed. He cried. He searched for comfort. He needed love. Before Hollywood, before magazine covers, before the world knew his name, he was simply a child hoping for the same thing every child deserves. A family. Outside their children's home, life in Cambodia continued. Markets opened every morning. Farmers worked their rice fields. Children rode bicycles to school. The country slowly rebuilt itself, one day at a time. No one could have imagined that one little boy living quietly in Battambang would one day travel the world, meet presidents, appear on magazine covers, and become the eldest son of Angelina Jolie. History rarely announces itself. It arrives quietly. And while Rath Vibol waited for a future he could never imagine, more than 8,000 miles away, a Hollywood actress was beginning to ask questions that would change both of their lives. She had come to Cambodia to film an action movie. But what she discovered outside the film set would stay with her forever. Without realizing it, Angelina Jolie was moving toward the biggest decision of her life. And somewhere in Battambang, a little boy named Rath Vibol was waiting for a mother he had never met. Sometimes, the smallest decision can change an entire life. In 2001, Cambodia was supposed to be just another filming location for Angelina Jolie. Another blockbuster movie. Another step in a successful Hollywood career. She had no idea it would become the place that changed her forever. At just 25 years old, Angelina had already won an Academy Award for Girl Interrupted. She was one of the biggest stars in Hollywood. To the world, she seemed to have everything. Success, fame, money, recognition. But years later, she admitted that something was still missing. She was searching for purpose. Then came Lara Croft Tomb Raider. The filmmakers chose Cambodia for its breathtaking temples and stunning landscapes. But while audiences admired the scenery, Angelina noticed something else. The people. When filming paused, she traveled beyond the movie set. She visited villages, met local families, and witnessed a country still recovering from decades of conflict. Many communities struggled with poverty. Schools lacked basic supplies. Healthcare remained limited. Yet despite those hardships, she saw resilience. Children still smiled. Families welcomed strangers with kindness. Communities continued rebuilding their lives. Those experiences stayed with her. Years later, Angelina said Cambodia completely changed the way she saw the world. Poverty was no longer just a headline. It had become personal. When filming ended, most actors returned home. Angelina stayed longer. She wanted to learn. She met humanitarian workers, listened to local organizations, and asked questions about the children growing up in such difficult circumstances. Around the same time, she also became involved with the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees. Her humanitarian missions introduced her to families displaced by war and children living without permanent homes. Those experiences reshaped her priorities. She later explained that they made her realize life was about far more than Hollywood. As she learned more about Cambodia, she also learned about its child welfare system. She discovered that every child had a different story. Some had lost parents. Others came from families struggling with extreme poverty. Angelina approached the subject carefully. She spoke with adoption professionals, learned about the legal process, and spent months reflecting before making any decision. She was looking to rescue a child. She was preparing to become a mother. Then, she learned about a baby living in a children's care center in Battambang province. Official records identified him as Rath Vibol. He was still an infant, too young to know that someone on their other side of the world had begun thinking about him. The most important moments in history often begin quietly. Not with cameras, not with headlines, but with one conversation, one decision, one heart slowly changing, while Angelina considered the future she wanted to build. Life inside the children's home continued as always. Caregivers fed the children. Babies slept peacefully. The days passed without anyone realizing that one little boy was about to become part of one of the most famous families in the world. The distance between them was still thousands of miles, but fate was already bringing them together. And before long, their lives would change forever. History remembers the moment a family is created. The photographs, the legal documents, the headlines. But long before any of that, there were months of waiting, paperwork, approvals, and uncertainty. International adoption is never simple. Every step exists for one reason: to ensure that child's best interests come first. By early 2002, Angelina Jolie had made her decision. She wanted to become a mother. Not because of fame, not because of publicity, but because her time in Cambodia had changed the direction of her life. She spent months learning about their adoption process, consulting legal experts, speaking with professionals, and preparing for the responsibility of raising a child. Finally, the day arrived. There were no television cameras, no red carpet, no Hollywood spectacle, just a quiet room, a caregiver, an American actress, and a baby whose life was about to change forever. Angelina later recalled that Maddox appeared calm, curious, almost as though he was quietly observing everyone around him. There was nothing dramatic about their first meeting. Just a child, looking at the woman who hoped to become his mother. Sometimes, the biggest moments in life happen without anyone realizing it. That meeting lasted only a short time, but it marked the beginning of a bond that would shape both of their futures. Soon afterward, their adoption was officially completed. According to public records, Angelina finalized their adoption in Cambodia in March 2002. Rath Vibol became Maddox Jolie. His middle name, Chivan, was chosen to honor his Cambodian heritage. From the beginning, Angelina wanted her son to remain connected to the country where he was born. She believed adoption should never erase a child's past. Instead, it should build upon it. Throughout the years, she returned to Cambodia with Maddox. She encouraged him to learn about its history, its culture, and the people who shared his roots. Leaving Cambodia marked the beginning of an entirely new life. For Maddox, everything changed. A new country, a new language, a new home. But for the first time, He had something every child deserves: a permanent family. At the same time, Angelina's own life changed just as dramatically. The world had known her as an actress. Now, she was a mother. Friends later said that motherhood transformed her priorities. Movie premieres became less important. Awards mattered less. Her focus shifted to raising her son. She often said becoming a mother gave her life a new sense of purpose. As news of their adoption spread, the media quickly took notice. Magazine covers celebrated the story. Television programs followed every public appearance. Yet despite their attention, Angelina worked hard to protect Maddox's childhood from the spotlight. She knew children never choose fame, and she wanted him to experience as normal a life as possible. She couldn't have known that only a few years later, another person would enter their lives, a man who would become one of the most important figures in Maddox's childhood. Brad Pitt. When Brad first met Maddox, he wasn't meeting a celebrity's son. He was meeting the little boy who had already changed Angelina Jolie's life forever. Soon, he would change Brad's life as well. For the first time in his life, Maddox had what every child deserves: a permanent home, a loving mother, and a future filled with possibilities. But neither he nor Angelina knew their family was about to grow again. Because somewhere in Hollywood, another chapter was quietly beginning. A chapter involving one of the world's biggest movie stars, Brad Pitt. In 2004, Angelina and Brad met while filming Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Their growing friendship quickly became the focus of worldwide media attention. But away from the headlines, something much more meaningful was happening. Brad was getting to know Maddox. Building a relationship with a child takes time. Trust can't be forced. It has to be earned. Brad understood that. Instead of trying to become a father overnight, he simply spent time with him. They played together, shared meals, read books, and slowly built a genuine bond. Years later, Brad recalled one unforgettable moment. One day, without being asked, Maddox looked at him and called him Dad. Brad later described it as one of the most emotional moments of his life. Because in that single word, he felt accepted, not as a movie star, but as a father. In 2006, that relationship became official. Brad Pitt legally adopted Maddox. His name became Maddox Jolie Pitt. For the public, it was another celebrity headline. For the family, it meant commitment, permanence, and the beginning of a new chapter together. The family continued to grow. Angelina adopted Zahara from Ethiopia. Brad later adopted her as well. Then came Shiloh, their first biological child together. Later, they welcomed Pax from Vietnam. And finally, the twins Knox and Vivienne. Together, they became a family of 8. Children born in different countries, raised together under one roof. The Jolie Pitt family quickly became one of the most recognizable families in the world. Every vacation made headlines. Every public appearance attracted photographers. To millions, they seemed like the perfect modern family. But behind the cameras, life was often surprisingly ordinary. There were school mornings, homework, family dinners, sibling arguments, movie nights, and parents trying to balance work with raising 6 children. Angelina also made sure each child stayed connected to their roots. Maddox regularly returned to Cambodia. Zahara learned about Ethiopia. Pax remained connected to Vietnam. She wanted every child to be proud of where they came from. As the oldest sibling, Maddox naturally became a role model for his younger brothers and sisters. Friends of the family often described him as thoughtful, quiet, and mature beyond his years. Unlike many celebrity children, he showed little interest in fame. Instead, he became curious about filmmaking, not as an actor, but as someone interested in what happened behind the camera. From there outside, everything seemed perfect. A little boy from Cambodia had found a loving family, a future full of opportunity, and a place where he truly belonged. But life has a way of changing when we least expect it. By 2016, behind the smiles and family photographs, difficult challenges were beginning to emerge. One event would forever change the Jolie Pitt family. But no matter what happened next, nothing could erase how extraordinary Maddox's journey had already been. From an uncertain beginning in Cambodia to becoming the eldest son of one of Hollywood's most famous families, his story had already inspired millions around the world. Every journey has a beginning, but very few remind us that where someone starts does not decide where they will end. For Maddox, the journey began in a children's care center in Cambodia. Today, he is known around the world. Yet unlike many children raised in famous families, he has spent much of his life avoiding the spotlight. As he grew older, it became clear that fame was never his goal. He rarely gave interviews. He stayed away from social media, and he preferred living a private life. Those who have worked with him often describe him as thoughtful, quiet, and deeply curious. Instead of chasing celebrity, Maddox developed an interest in filmmaking, not in front of the camera, but behind it. Angelina encouraged that curiosity. She wanted each of her children to choose their own path. In 2017, that opportunity arrived. Angelina directed First They Killed My Father, a film based on the true story of Cambodia during the Khmer Rouge era. For her, the project was deeply personal. It was also a chance for Maddox to reconnect with the country where his own journey had begun. During production, Maddox helped behind the scenes. Angelina later said he reviewed scripts, joined creative discussions, and offered valuable cultural insight throughout the project. Watching him return to Cambodia, not as the little boy who had left years earlier, but as a young man helping tell his country's story, was a powerful full-circle moment. Then, in 2019, Maddox reached another milestone. He enrolled at Yonsei University in South Korea to study biochemistry. The decision surprised many people. Rather than following his parents into Hollywood, he chose education, science, and a future of his own making. Angelina later admitted that saying goodbye at college was emotional. Like parents everywhere, she found it difficult to watch her oldest child begin an independent life. As the years passed, Maddox continued living quietly, choosing privacy over publicity, while the public remained fascinated by the Jolie Pitt family. He focused on building his own future. Of course, no story about the family is complete without acknowledging the difficult years that followed. In 2016, Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt separated. Their divorce and legal proceedings became one of Hollywood's most closely followed stories. Over time, reports suggested that relationships within the family had changed, including the relationship between Brad Pitt and Maddox. But much of what happened remains private, and only those involved know the full story. What remains undeniable is that Maddox has continued moving forward, creating a life defined not by celebrity, but by his own choices. Looking back, it is remarkable how one decision changed everything. If Angelina had never traveled to Cambodia, their paths might never have crossed. A little boy named Rath Vibol might have lived an entirely different life. Instead, one act of compassion created a story that inspired millions around the world. Because this has never been just a celebrity story. It is a story about hope, about family, about identity, and about the power of opportunity. No child chooses where they are born. But sometimes, one decision, one act of kindness, can change an entire lifetime. That may be the true legacy of Maddox Jolie. Not that he became part of one of Hollywood's most famous families, but that his journey reminds us. The greatest transformations often begin with the smallest acts of compassion. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this documentary, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications for more carefully researched stories about remarkable lives and true events. And now we'd love to hear from you.